Welcome to the NFP podcast, where we explore the empowering world of natural family planning. I'm Amy Smith. Join me and my co-host Emily Appledorn each week. Together, we're here to dive deep into the science, the stories, and the spirituality behind NFP. Every week, we push back against the free love culture and advocate for a culture of responsible love, where intentionality and respect are at the forefront of family planning. Join us as we discuss everything from the practicalities of charting and fertility awareness to the profound impact NFP can have on relationships and communities. Whether you're new to NFP or a seasoned pro, our podcast is your go-to resource for honest conversations, expert insights, and real-life experiences. So grab a friend, settle in, and get ready to be inspired. This is the NFP podcast. Dr. Julia Sadusky is an author, speaker, and licensed psychologist. She owns Lux Counseling and Consulting in Littleton, Colorado, where she offers individual, family, and couples therapy in addition to consultations for individuals and families around sexuality and gender. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Julia Sadusky back to the NFP podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, everyone.
We are really excited today because we have back with us one of our favorite guests, Dr. Julia Sadusky from Littleton, Colorado. She is going to be sharing with us an amazing program she's recently launched all about how we can talk to our teens from a Catholic worldview about matters related to human sexuality. I mean, it is so extensive. I'm so excited to have her. She's been very busy, so I'm really grateful she's given us some time to share this great program with all of you. Welcome back to the podcast, Dr. Sadusky.
Thank you. It's so good to be with you both.
We're so excited you're here.
I really am. Very excited. So for those of you who are our listeners anyway, that haven't listened the first time you were on, if you haven't, go back and listen to that. I'll link it in the show notes too. Why don't you just give us a little bit of a rundown about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I am a cradle Catholic, grew up on the East Coast, went to Ave Maria University in South Florida for my undergrad, and then I studied at Regent, which is where I got my doctorate in clinical psychology. So I'm a licensed psychologist now in Colorado. I've been here since about 2019. I have a private practice here, and I really specialize in the intersection of faith, sexuality, and gender. So a lot of my work has been with religious families who are navigating questions around sexuality and gender. But I've also worked in trauma-informed care, eating disorders, all kinds of other things. And a lot of my writing has been about sexuality. And, a lot of my earlier work was really reactive. How do we kind of help equip parents after a disclosure of pornography or after, an unwanted sexual experience or sexual abuse? And as time went on, I started thinking, how do we be proactive? And that was really the spirit of some of the more recent work I've done in helping parents talk with kids and teens about sexuality in proactive and developmentally appropriate ways.
And so I'm guessing that's where this course came from then, was kind of a culmination of your experiences in the field to say like, okay, we need to nip this in the butt, if you will. Like, let's equip parents before kids are coming to me or before families are coming to me with these struggles. So that way they can, get ahead of it and feel comfortable with these topics and communicate them effectively.
That's right. I was really seeing a lot of young people who got an education from just about everything else except for their parents before puberty hit. And so by the time parents are having a sex talk, their young person has gotten education from peers and social media and kind of anything else. And so it struck me, how do we make information that's medically accurate, psychologically effective, and just grounded in our faith? How do we make that accessible to parents? And so, the video course is really taking key concepts from my books about sexuality and sex education and putting it in kind of modules to really make it accessible to parents and give them exactly what they need to start these conversations.
Wow.
So fantastic. Oh my gosh, so fantastic. Okay, so why don't we start then if you want, she does, and I'm going to link this in the show notes too. Dr. Sadusky has a great, like 5-6 minute YouTube video that just kind of is an overview of the course for parents that want to get a general idea of what's in it. And it's not a brief overview. I mean, you give a good detail about what's in each module. So how about let's run through the modules, if you don't mind, Dr. Sadusky, and you can kind of do a little bit of what you do in the YouTube clip, but we'll probably expand on it a little bit. And then I know Emily and I might have, extra questions to ask too. So you start the whole course program out with the talk before the talks. So before you go into that module, I'd love to hear your demographic. Like, what age group are we thinking? Obviously, parents can watch this no matter what age their kids are. And I know you said last time you were on the podcast, it's never too late. Like, you can always have these conversations with your kids. But how young, I guess, when should we start or think about starting talking about this?
Yeah, so I would say if you think of a kid who's getting to be about 7 or 8, that's really the best time to start watching these videos, at least the earlier ones, because the whole premise of the talk before the talks, which we'll get into more, is, really helping parents identify how their own story impacts these conversations. And so you can do that a year before you ever have to talk with your teen. And that's really the idea of the series, is you could do one module and spend 6 months reflecting on whatever came of it. A talk with your spouse, talk with friends, talk with a therapist, a spiritual director. And so I think 7 or 8 is really, if you want to be really proactive, that's kind of when you can start, because we'll get into bodily changes, which for young girls start to happen right around 8 to 10. And so you have a little wiggle room there, right? A couple of years to where they're developing some, where you can start to introduce these topics. But I think for parents to just know the lay of the land, probably in that 8 to 10 range is the sweet spot for some of these ideas.
Awesome. Okay. And okay, so go ahead. What's module 1? Talk before the talks.
Yeah, so the talk before the talks is really, again, just for parents and really trying to help parents reflect on their own story. So the idea that I look at there is just who taught you about sex and what is the message they gave you, in a word or in a phrase. What are some of the things that you got from the people who raised you, social media, if you had access to that, friends, family members, siblings, who taught you about sex? And really helping parents identify what are going to be the hard things for me to talk about with my kid and start brainstorming that. And then not only that, but helping parents try to cope with that ahead of time. Say, okay, so if this is hard for me, if I get embarrassed, for instance, using accurate terms for genitalia, how do I equip myself to be most effective in that area? So trying to help people predict the seemingly unpredictable and really try to imagine these conversations and get ahead of some of the common challenges parents face.
This is so affirming. So, Dr. Sadusky, I've recently started working again with couples preparing for marriage to do like a kind of overview of NFP, overview of church teaching. And since the last time we've had you on, Emily and I read through the encyclical about the truth and meaning of human sexuality and how we as parents are the primary educators for kids. And it's just a great encyclical. So we really enjoyed it. Oh, so well done. Yeah, we really enjoyed it. And so applicable to our time, even though it was written, like in the 90s or something. So anyway, I say all that to say what I've included now in my presentation with these couples is one, like I make sure to really address like, hey, we're going to be talking about some sensitive issues and some things might come up from your own experience. Your conscience might be a little stirred and that's okay. Let's kind of lean into that. If you have questions, feel free. I'm not a counselor, so we don't go in depth, obviously, in that regard, but I just kind of make them aware like, hey, we're going to be talking about some of these issues. And at the end, I kind of share like in church teaching on certain things. And one of the main points of all of this, or one of the main reasons we want to make sure you're solid in this understanding is because you're going to have to teach your kids. Did you know that when you get married and if you have children, you are going to be the primary educator on this topic? So if you're not comfortable now, I highly recommend starting to get comfortable. So anyway, it's cool. It's like, it's one little line in my presentation, but I just feel so like I'm empowering them even more with this awareness that, hey, this might be coming down the pipe. And so, get going. Get going on getting comfortable. So, okay, that's the talk before the talks. Oh, go ahead.
That's right.
If you want to comment about it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's all. I was just going to say that it's, a lot of parents say, oh, my kid's not old enough yet. So I'm just going to wait. And I say, listen, the better off you are is just really getting your head around this as quickly as possible.
And actually, Dr. Sadusky, this is where I want to ask this question then. So for couples that are really comfortable talking about this, like, Emily and I are really comfortable talking about this. And, my kids come to me with questions and I have maybe I'm overly confident. I just feel totally comfortable answering questions and talking about everything related to this. So in those situations, in those contexts, like, should we as parents, and I know we're not unique, there's lots of parents that do feel comfortable talking about this, should we still be using something like this? Like, is it enough? Here's my question, I guess. Is it enough for a child to just grow up in that environment where sexuality is a comfortable topic? You could ask mom and dad answer your question. No one's awkward or weird. We move on to the next topic. There's just this kind of free open door policy, the body is good. Like, does that suffice? Or should we still be having very focused, targeted conversations? Because right now I'm kind of just like letting things come up as they come up and talking about it. What do you recommend?
That's such a great question. Yeah, I think, for kids who are much more vocal, and we may have even talked about this last time we spoke about conversations with younger kids even, but some kids will tell you what they're thinking. You don't have to pull for anything. They'll bring it up, or there will be a teachable moment that comes up and kids can engage. I hear from parents that for other parents, their kids are either shy or maybe they're more introverted. And so a lot may be happening internally, but what they show to you is ambivalence or apathy or disgust, and you may be less inclined to go there. So I think, something I tried to do in this series was try to keep all the different types of personalities of kids in mind, and also different relationships, right? I mean, this with your own children. You have different relationships with each of them and different styles of communication. And so even trying to think about, okay, here's the content. I need all my kids to get it, and I can't rely on the kids who maybe are the most curious or the most vocal to guide the conversation. And so I think if you're initiating and using teachable moments, that's something I talk about a lot. I think that will get you further than just saying, okay, open door policy. But I think hopefully what we do in these modules is actually just make you feel sure, okay, I know what I need to give them by 18. I know the key areas. And for me, I think, some of this I've even been struck by when I was writing the teen book, which was, we don't really talk with teenagers about attractions as such. We talk about dating, we talk about relationships, but I kind of need a module on attraction. I kind of need a chapter on attraction. And so I think some of those insights come in for even families who are super effective. It's just making you feel really good about the fact, okay, we're hitting all the bases and we're open door policy and initiating so all our kids can get the same thing.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Yeah, good answer. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, all right, module 2, clarifying the message.
Yeah. So, I ask a lot of parents when I speak, what's the one word to describe your sex education? And I do this in the series as well. And then I'm really trying to help parents set intentions for these conversations. What's the message I want my kids to take away from these conversations? And that module is really meant to facilitate conversation between spouses. Okay, what are the things I want them to take away, and how do we communicate that? And so it kind of gives way to that aspiration. Again, I think a lot of parents, even parents who are comfortable, they don't often have time, right, to sit and reflect and say, okay, what am I trying to do here though? What's the takeaway I want them to have? And so that whole module is infused with theology of the body, infused with kind of, I think, what a Catholic vision for sexuality is, and how do we really integrate that and imagine the ways that we want to integrate that message in an ongoing and gradual way.
Okay. And module 3, what if you feel behind?
Yes, this is really to try to buffer parents who carry so much guilt and shame about this. I don't think there's any parent who I've ever met who did this perfectly. And a lot of times when I give talks or speak to parents, it's such a barrier to engaging with the content because they're already feeling like I'm on my back foot. I have an 18-year-old or a 26-year-old. I've had people say, my child's been married for 5 years. Should I call her and like have these conversations now? Like, I feel terrible. And so really it's trying to attend to the shame of parents. That module, that's the first goal of that module. And also just give practical scripting for if insofar as you're behind, and we all really are on some level, what's the thing I can say to my kid that can get me in the door? And so it kind of pulls those parents along who might be inclined to say, it's too little too late for me. I'm just not good at this, or I just missed the boat, and give them some real concrete, practical language to use with their teen child, usually, to just start these conversations, no matter how far behind they feel.
Awesome. Very redemptive. That's great. Module 4, introducing pubertal changes. Did I say that right? Pubertal? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's the word. Every time I write that word, I'm like, surely that's not right.
Pubertal? That's it, yeah.
Yeah, pubertal. I changed it. Puberty, pubertal. What is it?
So funny. We were in the car today, and my younger son, he was asking me questions about like government, and he was asking about the different levels, and he's like, so there's federal, and then is it statal? And then local? Like, add the L to the end of everything. And I was like, well, we just say it's federal, state, and local. But I understand why you did the L.
That's
anyway, that's what that made me think of. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one's
pretty changes.
Self-explanatory to people. It is something that a lot of people miss. A lot of times we take for granted that kids' bodies are going to change at puberty. We tell people it might be uncomfortable, it might be weird, but it's going to happen. A lot of times the most we do with, boys is we might talk with them about ejaculation, maybe, although that often doesn't happen. And then with girls, we might talk with them about menstruation. That would be common, right? And so really what I try to do in this is list all the bodily changes that are happening and help parents just forecast that for an 8 or 9-year-old. Again, not in a scary way, but a medical matter of fact, hey, you're going to get hair growing under your arms and over your body, and you're going to notice that. And so we're going to get to go to the store and get you some things to shave if you're a girl, and if you're a boy, get you a razor, and dad's going to teach you how to kind of shave the beard as time goes on. And so you're just naming that's to come. Deodorant. Why? Because you're going to get all these hormones that are going to make you smell and sweat more. And so we're going to get you deodorant for that. And just, again, walking through all the different changes, because it is a difficult time for many kids. And what we all know is when we're stepping into an unknown, it's better to know what's coming, even if what's coming can be kind of unnerving too. A lot of young people today would never say to you, I'm really scared of what's happening in my body, or I don't know why it's happening, but they might be having mixed feelings about it. And so again, some kids feel really cool about it and honored in the fact that their body's changing. Some feel really uncomfortable. So that's one of the keys of that module. And then the other piece of it is talking and really attending to body comments that can happen at this time. I mentioned at the start, I've done a lot of work in eating disorders, and so I'm really attentive to how bodily changes at puberty are kind of a key moment where people can develop disordered relationships with food and self-consciousness around their bodies. And so just a little bit of scripting there too on how do we help parents buffer against some of the messaging that can come in there and really get caught up in kids' minds who are more vulnerable to that.
Can I interject as you're talking about this? So like the first few modules that we talked about, just correct me if I'm wrong, those sounded like maybe those were like parent-only modules, would you say? And then is this like parent-child module?
It's a good question. So I thought about doing this series in that way, where I was going to do something for parents and their kids to watch. But to be honest with you guys, I just kept coming back to what our church teaches about parents being primary educators. And I kept coming back to this sense that like I'm a stranger to a teenager. And I just didn't feel great about being the one to just, be in everybody's living room saying, here, let me tell you while your parents watch. Like I really think the idea of all of this is you do not need a doctorate in psychology to do what I'm
That's beautiful
here. And so I just want to embolden people that, these are, you could, I guess, watch them with your teen, but the idea is you watch them, you talk with your spouse, they're 7 to 12 minutes each, and then you tag team or you divide and conquer, and you're hitting on these different topic areas over time.
Amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, module 5, navigating attractions and dating. Sounds great.
Yeah. So again, I mentioned earlier, attraction is kind of the unspoken territory of adolescence that everybody goes through. Most go through it in a vacuum. They don't talk about attraction as such. And so really, I'm trying to bring in the ideas of what do we know about attraction? When does that start to develop in kids? How do you introduce that to them and help them know attractions are the kind of thing they can talk about? Especially for, again, some kids will talk about it. You'll know if they have a crush. Other kids will not. And especially for kids who experience attractions to the same sex, they will not often talk to their parents about it until 5 years later is the average in Christian families. And so I was trying to think, how do we help those kids go to mom and dad with their attractions when this is all new territory and when it can feel really scary and overwhelming? So parents get to weigh in and speak into areas of shame there and overwhelm, as opposed to that young person carrying that for 5+ years and kind of getting messages from just about everywhere else about attraction and not from their family. So it's attraction, yes, dating. I have a supplemental handbook that I'm sure we can talk about after we get through the modules, but that's part of the series where that is worksheets and diagrams and things you can show your teens. And so in this section, there's actually a really cool handout I developed on dating rules and just helping parents have conversation with their teens who are dating about what are the values in our family around dating so that you can kind of shape that more than just saying, oh, you're dating, don't do X, Y, and Z, right? What are we going for aspirationally? And how do we talk about that with a teenager in a language that they can kind of understand and collaborate with us in?
Gosh, that's so great. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so glad I asked that question at the beginning too, because I'm thinking, my oldest, is, yeah, very chatty. I mean, just asks lots of questions. He was present for some of my son's birth. Like he just, yeah, has no issue. We don't have any problem talking about this topic, but I've got 3 other kids coming up and yeah, you're right. They might not be so vocal and I might have to be more proactive in initiating the conversations before they graduate. I'm like, oh my gosh, we didn't really talk about much because you never asked. So that's great. So great. Okay, module 6, talking about sexual intercourse.
Mm-hmm. So this one is your classic sex talk, right? It's kind of succinct, medical. What are the key features of the sexual act and framing that in a Catholic lens? So that's in the context of marriage. That's something for adults, right? That I want you to know about as a teenager, but just kind of scripting that conversation. And then also it gives a little bit more insight into what is a Catholic vision for marriage and sexuality so that people can learn about sexual intercourse in this broader vision, right? As opposed to it's this standalone act that I get to kind of think about on my own time. No, this is framed in the context of marriage while recognizing, that's God's best and not everybody meets God's best in every moment when it comes to sexuality. And so kind of framing that conversation, it's probably one of the easier ones for parents once you've done all the other things, because you've talked bodily changes. So you've already used diagrams to show them. And I include these diagrams in the series and in the handbook, just so parents can point and say, here's this, here's how they go together. Make it as easy as possible.
When I was a new teacher, so early 20s, right out of college, I worked at the college I went to in one of the psychology offices. They put together this program for parents for kids with developmental needs. And they would come once a week for 6 weeks and we'd feed them dinner and it was just the parents. And we would give them tips and tricks, how to use a timer to set boundaries so your kid would know, when certain activities were up. And they would go home and they'd use the skill every week and then they'd come back and we'd talk. And they talked with us, the instructors, but they'd also talk with each other and they over dinner. And it was just this amazing, they all got so much from it. And now being a parent, I'm like, oh my gosh, if once a week I went somewhere and someone made me dinner and I could talk with other parents and we could not, and it wasn't commiserating, they would share funny stories about the kids and they would, how did the timer go for you last week? Well, the kid threw the timer across the room the first time, but then the second time it worked okay. It was just this camaraderie. And that's how I'm actually envisioning this, Dr. Sadusky, is like, wouldn't it be great if parents at a parish got together or just friends, right, got together, someone hosted, and we did a module together and we talked about it and we went home and we practiced and we came back. Gosh, that just sounds so like encouraging, especially for parents who don't feel comfortable with this. Like, let me hear how other people are doing this with their kids who have different temperaments. Like, oh my gosh, I think I might do that after I get this.
Almost like a Bible study. But
yeah.
Like, I mean, in essence, like a certain amount of time frame and you could just plan to do this. That would be so cool.
Because I could also see how this would be convicting for the parent. Like you already started about in the beginning, the talk before the talks is like, stuff's going to be coming up for me. And wouldn't it be nice to have peers to talk about that stuff too, as it comes up in the conversation? Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. That came to my mind. Like, that would be so cool. Okay. Module 7, addressing boundary violations.
Yeah, so this is one, right, most parents don't even want to think about. And this is probably one of the most common things that gets missed with teenagers. Now, you may, with young kids, talk with them about safe touch and unsafe touch and that kind of thing. But in the teen years, we're seeing a lot more young people experience boundary violations, physical, sexual boundary violations, even with people they're dating. So they may be wanting to be with somebody, happy with them, and then a line gets crossed that they didn't choose, and they don't know how to talk about that, right? Because it's hard to talk about. It feels like I did something wrong. And especially if there was an element of coercion there of any kind, you're left with a lot of shame. So I really was trying to think, what are the things that parents need to say to a teenager that helps them know what to do if uncomfortable situations happen without traumatizing their kid by giving explicit detail of all the ways harm can happen. And so this module is, again, really from a therapist, what do we need to teach teenagers about how to protect and keep safe their bodies from harm, and what to do if a violation does happen. But again, doing that in a way that's not fear-mongering and not inducing of terror in relationships. So that's really what that module is all about.
Fantastic. Module 8 is talking about self-stimulation.
Mm-hmm, right. So that's right, the medical term for masturbation. And again, I think a lot of times where I see that happening in Catholic circles is we talk about it in youth groups. We talk about masturbation and pornography, maybe in confirmation classes, in kind of the Roman Catholic tradition, right? We're teaching masturbation and pornography are sin. Well, unfortunately, many people who self-stimulate do it almost spontaneously without realizing what's happening long before they have full knowledge or even full consent of what's happening there. So something feels pleasurable before they even realize it qualifies as masturbation. And so what I've seen a lot from Catholic adults is they come to my office and they're carrying such shame about masturbation because they didn't have anybody speaking into it except for to say this is a grave matter and a mortal sin. Even though all three of us know that for something to be a mortal sin, it has to be freely chosen and there has to be full knowledge, right, of the gravity of the act. And so I think I try to frame that module and the module on pornography in a really psychologically informed way that helps us name that this does happen for some teenagers, invite young people to disclose insofar as it has already happened by the time that you become aware, and especially insofar as it happened accidentally. So not imbuing a type of spiritual weight and significance to these things that isn't accurate to most teenagers' experience of them. And so trying to break that down a little bit more. And then also skills for disrupting these behaviors. I think many teens, again, they carry these in the shadows. And so I do a lot of work. Again, in the supplemental handbook, I developed like a skills worksheet that you can do with a teen. You don't have to be a therapist to do this, to kind of say, okay, here's your coping skills. Here's kind of the ways I, as your parent, can help you, knowing this is a challenge right now. And just planning for some of the roadblocks along the way.
That is so fantastic. Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic. Okay, number 9, addressing pornography.
Yeah, so this isn't entirely different, right? I think it's kind of recognizing porn exposure is usually accidental for most teenagers today. It comes to them without their seeking it out. And so helping parents introduce what pornography is a little bit sooner than they would be comfortable doing, probably, and describing it. Again, how do you describe it in a way that's not overly graphic, but names so that they know when they see it what it is and what to do then. So a lot of my guidance here is, okay, when you see this content, what do you do? Where do you go? And who can you talk to? And helping again them turn to parents and other people. And the other key piece here is helping parents name that there will probably be mixed emotions around seeing pornography. A lot of times when we frame it as this is a mortal sin and it's so disturbing and using people, which again, that's all accurate on some level. It doesn't really account for the pleasure response of a young person. And so they usually feel like a monster. Then when they have mixed emotions, if I feel shame and I feel pleasure and I want to watch it again. So how do we help them understand why that happens, that it's designed to make you feel that way, and sexual activities, not entertainment. And so kind of at a time when they can really be more prone to getting that, giving them that language and that framework, and then again, helping them appreciate why they go back to these things if they do find themselves in cycles of it. And again, there's all kinds of handouts there in that module as well about how to give language to what can feel really muddy for the teenager.
Well, I keep hearing you say that, giving language to things. It's just so helpful for young people. Well, for me too. Like, I don't, what am I feeling? Like, what am I experiencing right now? I know this is bad or wrong, but I want to do it, or I like it. And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, how do I hold these two things? Like, what do I do? And I could see even more so for a young person, like, mom and dad, help me. Like, I don't know what to do. But if you don't have the ability to have that conversation for whatever reason, or you're just too shy or whatever, then you're just living with that tension. And that tension for a young person, I can imagine, is just, yeah, even more challenging than you're already going through puberty and you're having that tension than being an adult and going through that too. So
I
that's just
think
so great.
about, yeah, I think about just like appropriate curiosity, because when you're talking about that, and then and you're talking about it as if when you see it, just like you said, that's so perfect. And then when they do see it, there's got to be a level of like, okay, this is what mom was talking about. I'm supposed to, like to have that self-control,
Yes.
that takes a lot of grace,
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Well,
the idea, right? Is demystifying that. And because I think a lot of what you learn from studying people who report about pornography and masturbation is it's oftentimes spurred by natural curiosity. They want to know about their bodies, they want to know about sexuality, and we want to demystify that for them to kind of take away that component so they're not being capitalized on because they're developmentally curious, which is normal. And so you demystify it, and then exactly what you said, Emily, they think, oh, that's what mom was talking about. That's what dad was talking about. And what did mom say? Oh, she said, come tell her. Oh, okay. Well, hey, mom, that thing happened that you told me about. Exactly what you want.
You make it sound so simple, which is that's so beautiful. I believe it can be like that. I really do. That's so beautiful. And I think parents probably just get in their head about all of that and then just kind of freeze. That's my guess.
That's right. And in the books, I mean, it gets a little more interesting because nothing's a textbook. And most times parents are finding out about these things after a discovery or after a disclosure, and, you're on your back foot and all of that. So it doesn't always go seamlessly. And I can tell you that from working with a lot of families that when they do this, it does go way more seamlessly than you would imagine. It's surprising to me that it actually works. Yeah.
gosh, that's so encouraging. Yeah, it makes me be like, I really want to have this conversation like tomorrow. It's just because it's hard, when your kids are out in the world. I mean, you only, have so much control over screens. And I don't think that my boys' first encounter with this would be something that they would seek out. I imagine they're at practice and, we have a big don't look at someone else's screen rule, but you look over and even the other kid not intentionally looking for something, but it just pops up on their phone. anyway, all that stuff. So this is great. So great. Okay. Module 10, understanding sexual orientation.
Yeah, so this one is really trying to address same-sex attraction, bisexual attraction in teenagers, and again, go beyond those initial conversations about attraction as such to helping a young person kind of be aware of some of the challenges that can come up around these questions, so questions of faith, what does this mean about my faith and my relationship with God? Some teenagers will have questions about how did this happen? Why do I feel these attractions? And so parents can speak into that, but also just helping equip parents to know the kind of developmental milestones and the common developmental questions. A lot of parents will focus on sexual behavior. Don't have sex with somebody of the same sex. That doesn't tell them what to do with their attractions and the ways to glorify God in their lives and be a good steward of their desires. And so actually I collaborated with Eve Tushnet, who developed an organization called Building Catholic Futures. And her whole idea is really what are the ways that people with these experiences can glorify God in their lives? And so what's the positive vision? And so she and I worked together in the supplemental handbook on putting together some resources for parents of FAQs. What do parents need to know? What are the key questions teens will ask parents? And just giving scripted answers for them. And we kind of worked together on crafting that. So I'm really excited about that module and the one on gender because I think these are common areas that we've really not attended to historically. And it's no longer the case that we can, I think, just ignore those topics like maybe some parents have in the past.
They're pretty much everywhere, I feel like, now in our cultural conversation around anything related to human sexuality. Okay, so let's just move right in then to module 11, which is understanding gender.
Yeah, so very similarly, right? I think gender is politically laden today. It's emotionally evocative for a lot of people. A lot of parents feel protective of their kids around gender topics. And yet young people have friends who are navigating these spaces or they themselves are asking questions around embodiment. And so it's really trying to help model for parents, how do you respond to somebody asking questions around gender theory, around a friend who identifies as transgender, or around their own experience if they have a kind of gender dysphoria. And so it kind of breaks down some really key teaching pieces that I use a lot with parents to just make them feel more effective and equipped for something that can be so emotionally fraught.
And last one, module 12, navigating technology use.
Yes. So this was an investment on a topic that I talk way too much about in therapy with parents and teenagers, which is teenagers' relationship with technology. So I've really tried to look at how technology is a common vehicle for sexual exposure in teenagers and messaging around sexuality, grooming, all kinds of things, right, come through technology. And so I just try to give tips and tricks for parents of how to set your teen up for success there instead of not setting your teen up for success and then punishing your teen when they do what any teenager would do with these devices, which is get lost in them. And so really trying to frame to parents, kind of re-embolden parents to be the gatekeeper on these things and to help just give some practical guidance on how to do that more effectively.
That's fantastic. Okay. So I'm trying to think where to go. I do have a question about purchasing the program. You can get it through your website or through the website. The website, we'll link it in the show notes. It's talkingtoyourteenscourse.com. And do you purchase, when you make the purchase for the course, all the modules are online. You said they're about 12, 15 minutes long. And they
7 to 12, yeah, usually.
Okay, 7 to 12 minutes. Okay, even less. Great, 7 to 12 minutes. And they all come with, each module comes with like a PDF handout you can print out, or you buy a book with all the handouts. How does that part work?
Good question. So on the website where the course lives, you'll get every module listed and it'll have intros to each module. And once you pay for the course, you have access to that whole site, which has all the modules and it has the whole supplemental handbook. So it's about 60 pages of content and they can just download that whole PDF and then they can print it out. They can have it, electronically on just show their teen the side they want to show. So it has a table of contents, so it'll break it down just with the modules of the book, the teen book. And give you kind of all the resources at the end that are also in the book. So you can kind of, again, you can either let that live on that website or you can download it and print it out, just depending on what parents prefer.
Okay, that's great. And now, kind of going back to what I had said about could we do it as a group, like parents get together? Do you have anything on the site, for copyright purposes and licensing purposes? Like, can we order one copy and then, parents share it? Is it that we all have our own module and we come together? Like, how does that work if people want to do it with other people?
That's a good question. So if parents are going to want to watch it from their home and then come together and kind of talk about it, they're going to want to purchase kind of their own version, because basically you get lifelong access to it. So let's say they do that small group with you, they're not going to be able to see the content again. And what I hear from parents is they want to be able to watch module 1 3 times in 2 weeks and then kind of refresh and then go back to it with their next child if they are having challenges with a different area. Like, oh, this child just disclosed something to me that I didn't have to deal with the last kid. Where is that in the module series? So yeah, and I think, I guess the other piece of that, I guess you could, if you just watch the videos as a group, you could do it that way and have one person purchase. You just wouldn't get the supplemental handbook to everybody that way, because there is a copyright kind of restriction there.
Okay, great. Or have the ability to do what you said, is to go home and then just keep rewatching it over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Emily, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm curious, all of the modules, like what's in your mind, or what's the perfect time frame to be going over all of these modules? Like, for example, if, like Amy's saying, if you did this kind of like a study, would it be something that you kind of prepare your child for? Like, hey, over the summer, we're going to be talking about this. If things come up between talks, obviously, like we can talk about that, but just kind of prepping them. And like, is it like maybe once a week you kind of have another talk about a module kind of thing? Or what does that look like?
Such an interesting question. Yeah. I mean, my thought when I hear that is it kind of depends on the kid, right? Like there are some kids who take really well to that. They like want the structure, they want the routine. And so if you have a kid who like loves that, and in school they like routine and they like having their homework and getting it done, then that's going to work really well for them. If you have a kid who is a lot more spontaneous and kind of like little in the clouds, or they're in a stressful season and you're like, okay, we're doing this, then it's going to feel like a chore. Sure. And so I think just checking in with each kid, like, what do I know about my kid? How do they learn? Do they learn by me teaching them, or do they have to learn without them feeling like they're being taught? And so then I think you're gonna adjust that rhythm of, but absolutely, I've seen parents who just say, for the next 3 months we're gonna be sprinkling these in, or the next month and a half we're gonna be kind of doing these initial topics, because sexuality is a part of our lives, and it's important to me that you know about that. Absolutely could see that. And it's also true that if you have kids who are pretty close in age and who are both similar in how they learn, you could be doing this with both of them once a week. So I want parents to feel it doesn't have to be always, I'm doing with every kid. If I've got, they're a year apart and they're super close and they love talking together, then okay, you could talk with them about these topics at the same time. Actually, some of them, probably won't.
That answered my next question, because I think about these big families, right? And in that encyclical, we really referenced how so much is learned by example, right? But there are these things that need to be directly addressed, and so I wondered what that looked like for multiple kids. That's beautiful.
And what about families who in my for my kids, I have all boys, but different ages, obviously. But what about for families that have girls and boys? Are these conversations that should be had separately? Say you have like a 14-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl. Is that something they're going together? Is it, really just based on their personalities, the relationship with the kids? Or is it best to be done, gendered? Like, does gender make a difference, I guess, and who's presenting the information to the child, and then what children are present at time of the discussion?
Yeah. So I definitely would say, as far as parents go, there's no research to support that mom has to talk with girls and dad has to talk with boys. There's nothing that says that's helpful or necessary in a unique way. So really it's who can be effective in having these conversations and knows the information. And usually because girls don't learn about boys' bodies as much and boys don't learn about girls' bodies, we've kind of siloed that. And so I actually take the approach of if your child ever gets married, they're going to have to talk about sex and sexuality with somebody of the opposite sex. So let's start that with their parents before they get to that point where they can't do it with a romantic partner. And so I actually really
That's a good point.
Doing that together, or tag teaming and always signaling, you can bring this to dad too. You can bring this to mom too. Even if one is a little bit more confident than the other and you say, I'm going to do it tonight, but dad's great at this too, or mom's great at this too, just kind of really signaling we can talk about this across the sexes. I think to your question about the kids, it really depends on the family culture. So I came from a family where my dad and mom were both talking about sexuality. You know, they didn't do a perfect job, but they did a lot of kind of, my dad knew about menstruation. He could pick up pads or tampons from the store. That wasn't weird, right? And so I benefited with my male siblings from, we also could talk about that and had an ease. But I think if your family culture is not that way right now, and you were to say 16-year-old boy and 14-year-old girl, let's sit down and talk, that would be pretty shocking for them. So I think gauging what is our family culture around this. Do our children talk to each other about these things at the kitchen table? If they do, and they're very close in age, so 1 to 2 years max probably, and they're at the same developmental stage, and we want to talk about sexual orientation with them, and we have a very clear sense it's not either of their stories, but it's about their friends at school, then yeah, we could initiate that conversation with them. Or that they're images on screens that of naked bodies, and you're going to see those at some point, and like you could name that to a boy and a girl of similar ages if they already like talking with each other about sensitive topics. If they don't, you're going to do it separately, and that's true even girl to girl, boy to boy siblings, that you don't want to create a dynamic where you're putting them in a situation that feels embarrassing about these topics, and so you just want to anticipate that.
Great. And I was going to ask another question about purchasing the courses. Oh, okay. So if you purchase the course, you said you kind of get like a lifetime access to it. So should you in the future be making changes to it, is that kind of included to it? So you'll update it, but we would be kind of grandfathered into the updates as well. Okay, great.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we already actually, I should say, we released a Spanish translation of the supplemental handbook. So I'm so excited about it because Ave Maria Press wasn't going to be able to translate the actual book. So they let me pull so many more scripts than you even get in the English version of that handbook and just give Spanish-speaking families everything they need to have these conversations. And so that got kind of grandfathered into whoever bought the course already. They now have the Spanish version, and anything else that we do along the way, which, we hope to keep it updated, you'll get that on there as well.
Fantastic.
Wow. Would you speak, you mentioned something in regards, it doesn't matter if it's mom or dad. It's really whoever's most comfortable in the parent-child relationship. Will you speak to single parents that might feel really ill-equipped or and maybe they're single because of situational things that maybe the kids know about, maybe they don't, just whatever that is. Can you just encourage them?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I think the most important thing for parent listening in that situation is like, God gave you your child and he has given you what you need to be able to show up for them in this. You are not missing and lacking anything that's absolutely necessary here, even for all the ways, right, that you're going to feel on your back foot and overwhelmed and like, I wish I had somebody who I could count on. And even for married couples, this is the case that sometimes it's my husband would never say this or my wife would never go here. And so I think to know you're in good company, you're not alone in that experience of feeling like, do I have what it takes? And to be sure to resource like a small group at a church. I love that idea. Or female friends or male friends who you can bounce ideas off. And I think I often say to parents, I think I say it in the book, who knows you're going on this journey? Because this is a journey for you to try to do this well. And so who can you call after you have that talk with your teen and you feel like, I don't know what I just said. I think I blacked out. That was so crazy. Who can you debrief that with? It doesn't have to be a spouse for you to be supported. And so find at least one person who can know you're trying to venture into this terrain and who can be there for you as you go through it. Thank you. Well, yeah, you'll have to let me know what you all think of it. I'll make sure there's a discount code for your listeners
so
they can get
great.
Just access to it. And so excited it's out there. It was a real labor of love and
a real labor. I mean, a real labor. Yeah, that probably took a lot of work. So thank you so much for your time, Dr. Sadusky. And like she said, that's great. I didn't know we'd be able to get that. So check the show notes for that. Go get it. Yeah, talk about with other parents. This is so awesome. Thank you for all that great work, Dr. Sadusky. This is such a gift to our families. So yeah, I can't wait to have you back on when you do something else really amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Sadusky. Have a good night.
Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of the NFP podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and empowering. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please connect with us by sending us an email with your questions and stories to thenfpshow@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with more insights, tips, and heartfelt conversations about natural family planning. Until then, love responsibly.